Hey guys, I'm Philip Molina, and this is a breakdown for The Walking Dead Season 6, Episode 9, No Way Out. And oh my god, this was, I don't even want to say arguably, just maybe the best episode of the show ever, or at least way freaking up there. It definitely is on IMDb, way up there. We got that extremely explosive opening scene. There was an entire family that was like shredded in seconds. The really like emotional team up that happened near the end to help slaughter all those walkers. And obviously, the freaking shot heard around the world. And if you read the comics, you know, I mean, obviously this was a huge deal that you've been waiting for this whole time. I know I have. But also, you know, after this moment, everything changes. Everything for Rick, Alexandria, Carl, obviously. It all is about to just go in a whole different direction. I'm so excited, but mostly right here in this moment, I'm really happy with the show. I feel like they totally lived up to it, at least for me. I don't know if you guys agree, but obviously it was, even if you don't read the comics, a huge climactic game changer. There's clearly a lot to talk about. I'm very excited about it. So let's just jump right into the opening images. We return to that scene that was at the end of last episode where Daryl, Sasha, and Abraham are headed back to Alexandria and they get stopped by these out of nowhere badass guys. If you're like, what do you mean the scene from the end of last episode? It's because this was one of those weird scenes that they like removed and put in the middle of Into the Badlands, and you had to watch that show just to get this scene. So if you're seeing it for the first time in this episode, you missed a lot of it. We saw it again a different time. Something that they did here so that we didn't have to watch it identically was they kind of chopped it up and it would fade to black a couple of times. Kind of cool. I don't think that they were like purposely going for anything there, but to me it did kind of remind me of like turning the page on a comic. You just kind of are in and out of the story for a sec. And the only reason I mentioned that is because this episode was so out of the comics that I thought it was interesting that it kind of felt that way, but I don't think that was on purpose. What was on purpose is starting the whole thing with a freaking huge explosion. And getting us really excited for this episode. Now, before I go all into that boom, boom moment, I want to catch us up actually because it feels like it's been months since we've seen these people, and it kind of has. But in their timeline, it's only been a few days. So let's recap really quick what's happened to Daryl, Sasha, and Abraham. They were the ones that were leading the horde away by the car. That's where we kind of roughly started with them this season. They kind of get separated. Abraham goes off and almost kills himself, but he gets a rocket launcher out of it. Daryl meets some people that are probably on the run from the gang that we just met. I think they're Dwight and Sherry. He loses his crossbow and his motorcycle. They steal it. There was also a bunch of weird like flirtation between Sasha and Abraham. All of that happened in these last 2 days. Most recently, Daryl finds a fuel truck, meets up with his team again, and now we're back here. That all just happened over the last few days. It's been a really crazy couple of days for everybody. We'll get to everybody else after this moment. But back to here, these bad guys who are bad news. They ordered Daryl, Sasha, and Abraham to come out and hand over their guns, and obviously that really pisses Daryl off because he just lost his crossbow like a few hours ago. Then this unnamed gang lays this on us.
Your property now belongs to Negan.
Now, I did kind of talk about Negan on that last episode, but it's worth repeating. This is the best villain from the Walking Dead comics, bar none. And I actually don't even want to say too much about him because I'm sure the show is gonna introduce him in his own very cool way. Just know, the Negan storyline, the most intense, best dramatic storyline in the entire comic series. I'm so pumped for it. If you're like, oh, don't leave me hanging there are some clues to what Negan is like from this scene and these guys. Our first clue of what Negan's like. Notice how surprisingly smart these people are despite how they look. They can very quickly tell how resourceful our group is because of the tanker truck.
Now, if you can get your hands on a tanker, your people, our person wants to know.
They size up Abraham very quickly. They know they have more stuff. These people are surprisingly perceptive too. Despite how much they might want to murder you, they're like weirdly polite, as if that makes it better that they want to kill you. They say thank you and please.
Thank you. Thank you.
3, they have this very brutal code clearly that they live by.
If you have to eat shit, best not to nibble. Bite, chew, swallow, repeat.
And it's just obvious that things to them are very simple and straightforward as long as you live by their code. 4, they're weirdly obsessed with the idea of property, their own property, other people's property.
There's more. There is always more.
who things belong to. We actually saw a little bit of that in that other episode with the guy's watch that they take off of the severed arm because, again, you can't let go of property. It's very important to Negan and his people. 5, they're very organized. If these are the guys that Dwight and Sherry were running from, and I'm pretty sure they are, but also they're not even the same ones that they were running from in that episode. And you've got to remember that Dwight told Daryl he had been with them since the beginning and he didn't even know everyone that was in that group. So it's clear this is at least a small part of something that might be closer to a freaking army, and that just shows like they're freaking legit. 6, and this is the last thing that I want you to pull from this group as to what Negan is like, they're freaking evil. Like just straight up, they are just beyond morals at this point.
We introduce ourselves by just popping one of you right off the bat.
They have a freaking policy to kill someone in every group they meet immediately just to prove some sort of point. This guy's even just toying with them about their own lives, saying he's gonna kill Abraham and Sasha, saying he's not gonna kill them, saying he is gonna kill them. They're just bad people. But then, boom, amazing. Like just way to freaking kick this whole episode off with a bang. Daryl has found an even more lethal replacement than his crossbow, Abraham's rocket launcher, which I'm sure Abraham probably wants back at some point. He blows all of Negan's gang up. Well, at least this part of it. Whatever, you can tell I was kind of shocked. It was exactly what we all wanted to happen, but they actually did it. So my reaction was a lot like Sasha's reaction. Yep. Also, if you look really closely, actually, right before the explosion, if we go back, there's a car pulling into frame way in the background. I don't know that that's on purpose. There's a chance it was just a mistake on the production, but I prefer to instead believe, because it's much cooler to believe this, that might have been Negan just watching this whole thing or part of Negan's gang. Either way, makes sense that when you see a freaking rocket launcher blow your friends up, you don't run toward that, you run away from that for a moment. But it also makes sense that they'll be back with reinforcements. I'm so pumped and kind of scared for our friends. Then we get a shot of this guy's severed, burning, melting face head. Kind of sad actually that we never learned his name because he was surprisingly a pretty cool, interesting character. That said, again, he's insignificant compared to what's gonna come. But also note how Abraham here, he gets a great line.
Nibble on that.
Nibble on that, you burn face. And that's just one of his great lines. He gets another one later. But also, just in general, this burned face thing, that's another reference to Negan. A very obvious one that they're making, but I don't actually want to bring it up just yet because it's a cool reveal. Let's just say, don't forget this image, as if you could, because it's freaking the things of nightmares. So just hold on to that in your little memory, and then we'll bring it back up when it comes full circle later. Moving on. Our other opening images are here in Alexandria, which is now just totally swarming with walkers ever since, yeah, that. And if you think about that scene with Negan's gang, it's kind of like a pre-credits cold open. So I kind of feel like this is the real start of this episode. And I feel like that's why there's a little image here that they wanted us to hold on to. We have all of these walkers surrounding us. It's setting that feeling of there's no way out. It's almost claustrophobic. This whole episode is very claustrophobic, actually. But then there's that sign, come in, we're open. It's kind of a pretty obvious joke where it's like, yeah, the walls are down. We are now open to threats. And you're seeing that with all these hundreds of walkers come in. But there's actually another meaning that I want to touch on later once we have a little bit more context, so I'll come back to that at the end. Moving on. Note these shots of these walkers. They're all from a low camera angle, and that's foreshadowing something here. The walkers block our view from everything. They're all around us. They're towering over us. It's claustrophobic, again, no way out. But also, it's the perspective you would have if you were a little kid, like Sam. So the way Sam sees the walkers, we all know will play a huge role in the events of this episode, and I think this moment is just setting that up in advance. Then there's just like bleak music plays as we see the grossest like Red Rover line that you've ever seen as they sneak through the horde. And notice how we're not even hearing moans and growls from the walkers despite how many there are, which normally we do hear that. I think they're just making everything eerily quiet in this moment. And I know a lot of us thought in the last episode when it was ending with Sam's little that we thought everything was gonna break and just go to hell right then. And that's actually how it happens in the comics. It very quickly turns around, but the show keeps everything under control for the moment. And I'm sorry, I love that they stretched this moment out. Normally, that's a big annoying thing that, you know, when it takes a really long time on the show to do something that was very quick in the comics, this is the exception for me. This moment, so much is about to happen. It was worth just making me squirm. I bet you guys are squirming too, and just really feel the weight of this moment for how crazy things are about about to be. Also, note how there's a little bit more foreshadowing when you see Sam stare at that one walker with his guts hanging out, and he just like starts to lose it. Like you can tell he's going to break eventually. Funny enough, this is gonna sound forced, but I actually very recently did a prank for break.com where we showed a guy's guts burst out to like real unsuspecting people. And yeah, I learned that messes people up. Like it breaks their minds. Go watch that if you want after this video and you'll see like that's just the kind of thing for some reason when you see a person that looks roughly like a person but their guts are hanging out, that just messes you up. And you can see it's messing Sam up here. You can also see us messing up real people's minds in that other video if you want to watch it. Anyway, moving on. Oh, actually, before we fully move on, it's worth remembering this breaks people to see creepy walkers like this. It broke, I already forgot his name, the guy who blows his brains out when he saw it. And Sam, again, a small child who has never seen walkers up close before, and this is the first moment he is, and they're like everywhere all around him and their guts are hanging out. Don't hate Sam anymore. That kid just, oh, poor guy. Now moving on. Rick changes his mind about going to the armory and decides they'll go back to the quarry and they'll get their cars to help move the walkers again or something. More important, I think this is a good moment to just remember how crazy everything's been going for this group. Again, everything we've seen in season 6 has taken place mostly in just 2 awful days. So for them, it started with the quarry that was full of walkers, and then it all kind of comes undone early. So they have to quickly execute this plan where they send the walkers away. But then at the same time, the wolves attack Alexandria, and then the horn is blaring, and then the wall falls, and the walkers take over, and also Carl and Ron had their boy fight, and Deanna died, and all of this crazy stuff has just happened in the last like 48 hours. Crazy. Something else worth pointing out here, if you remember very recently, Gabriel and Rick were not on good terms.
I'd like to help as well.
No. Who else?
Rick was basically bullying Gabriel with his stupid flyers and pulling him down. But it is nice to see Gabriel kind of get back on Rick's good side by offering to take Judith to the church to keep her safe. Either way, this is what was interesting to me. I remember in the last episode, I was like, how are they gonna bring Judith through this thing? It's a very different situation in the comics. So I was like, are they gonna kill a baby? So no, they didn't kill a baby. Judith, you survive another day. As long as you shut the hell up and hide under some zombie guts, you last. Also, she's like the most adorable baby now, so it's gonna be a pretty hard thing to kill. Oh, also, I guess you can kind of hate Sam just a little bit here, because, dude, you should have listened to your mom. Like, you know, you're not tough. I'm sorry, bud. Well, now you're nothing. You're mud and guts. But, weirdly, despite the episode name, you had a way out. Sorry. Then we gotta catch up with this whole other group that we forgot about. Rosita and Tara and Lana Masterson holding out that hoodie as far as she can to cover her pregnant belly. And it's all right after Carol and Morgan have knocked each other out because they were mad at each other and they're both kind of dumb and wrong in this situation about the Alpha Wolf. But anyway, Carol doesn't waste any time because Dr. Denise was taken as hostage by the guy. She's like so eager to be basically told you so. But Carol, even though I was very mad at Morgan for keeping this guy in general, you've got a lot of blame on your shoulders too. Here's the thing with Carol. She doesn't get a ton of screen time in these couple of episodes, but she's kind of the key to a lot of the things that are going on. And her debate and fighting with Morgan over the Wolfman, that is kind of at its core about the same thing that The Walking Dead overall as a show is about. They're exploring the same themes in just this moment, so it's why Carol's actions are really important here. But these ideas of, do you have to kill someone when they're bad, or can people change and become good again in this world? Do you need to become bad in order to survive in this world? These are things that are just at the center of Walking Dead, and even though Rick is usually the one that's talking about this stuff and these people will never survive unless they do this, Carol is the one that embodies that the most. And keep in mind, Carol is the whole reason why Sam has his panic attack later, but the reason she scared him so much in that past episode, I'm sure you remember this clip.
You'll be outside the walls, tied to a tree, and they will tear you apart and eat you up all while you're still alive.
So the whole reason she did that is because Sam caught her stealing guns. So that was her breaking her character of Susie Homemaker. And had she accepted that maybe Alexandria could be a great place, maybe it would be what they're all dreaming for, what Rick has been telling them that they were gonna find. If she had believed that, she never would have told Sam that thing. She would have just lived there and been happy. I don't mean that that would have been better for the show or better for the plot or better for anything, but if she had believed that, she would have never had to scare Sam and do all that. But instead, because she believes that no, it's impossible to find an idyllic town, it's impossible to live in this dream world, that own belief kind of caused that to break down for Sam, that entire family, and Rick. His dream world collapses because Carol didn't even believe in it in the first place. Also, I don't know that the Wolfman would have escaped. I don't know if these events would have gone down the same way if Carol hadn't done her part. Remember, I'm so mad at Morgan too. But my point is, Carol, you've got a lot of blame on your shoulders too. And here's my concern about this. She's just gone through a very large arc, and we see maybe the actions that she's taken, maybe they're not justified. Maybe in order to survive in this world, you need to have a little bit of hope. We see Rick finds that at the end. I haven't seen Carol find that hope yet, and that kind of worries me about her survivability as a character. If she's just gone through a whole arc and they really want to prove a point about what that means, I don't know. Carol, I will say, is not safe in the comics, so is she safe here? I don't know. That said, Carol, if you're watching this, which you are not because you're a fictional character, but if you could watch this, you should know it's not too late. You can change. Rick just changed. You don't have to act all suicidal. You can become a person that can survive in the new world that Rick is gonna make. But again, you're a fictional character, so you're not watching this, so good luck to you. Next up are two scenes that they kind of intercut constantly back and forth. There's Glenn and Enid in the church looking for supplies to rescue Maggie, and then there's also the Alpha Wolf who's trying to escape with Denise as his hostage. These two scenes are definitely kind of parallel, but inverted from each other, and together they're kind of outlining a core theme of this episode. So let's look at each scene individually. In the church, Glenn is basically playing the role of Enid's guardian angel. I mean, he's literally preaching like a preacher to her from a pulpit to help her understand a Bible quote. It's the one on the wall, faith without works is dead. So that's from the Epistle of James in the New Testament of the Bible, and it's focused on the idea of patient perseverance during trials and temptations. That's what's needed in order to be alive. Not defeating the temptations, but the work that you do while you're trying to persevere. That's life, not perseverance itself. So you got to compare that to Enid's mantra that she always repeats to herself, just survive somehow. That's left her not only spiritually lost, but kind of hollow inside, just survive somehow. There's no connection there to anything or anyone else. And Glenn and that Bible verse are kind of saying otherwise. The only true salvation is by doing good works, probably for other people besides yourself, putting your faith in those people, and it's their love that make you who you are, that make you alive. Anything else is death.
People you love, they made you who you are.
It's a lot like Schrodinger's cat, actually. That idea that if there's a cat in a box and you can't see it, you can't hear it, is it alive? You don't know. It's not connected to anything else. Inside of that box, it's basically might as well be dead, right? That's Enid right now. If she doesn't connect to anything, then is she really alive? Not really. Then, kind of like a fancy funeral in a church, you got the stained glass cross behind him, and Glenn basically gives a eulogy for his dead friends. And there's two things that are interesting to me here. One, Glenn, you mentioned Andrea, but not T-Dog, and your sister-in-law, Beth? Come on, Glenn. Gotta look out for T-Dog. T-Dog. But two, Glenn seems very Christ-like lately. He's here framed by the cross. He's preaching Christ's message about loving your neighbor, caring for others more than you care for yourself. And pairing that with his very recent death and resurrection, feels like this season, the Bible imagery that's surrounding Glenn, I think it's all carrying some sort of greater symbolic meaning that we're gonna learn more about as the season progresses, but I definitely think they're doing this on purpose, parallels to the Christ storyline. It's definitely in there. It is an election year. Maybe the Walking Dead showrunners are trying to run for president and appeal to Christians, but they're definitely making some sort of connection here. I'm wondering how that's gonna turn out for Glenn, considering how it turned out for Christ. Okay, now let's check out the religious flip side of that heavenly scene with the demonic Wolfman, who is basically the devil on Denise's shoulder. He's using the same kinds of argument that Glenn does.
You're here because you're still here.
And he's telling Denise that she can also change, except he wants her to change kind of basically for the bad, to care about herself and embrace their style of living. And it's really interesting to pay attention to how that goes for these two couples, because in Enid's storyline, where she embraced the Christ-like figure and cares for others, they make it. And in the Devil storyline with Denise, that doesn't go as well. In fact, it's not until she rejects his idea of caring for yourself and wants to help him and then eventually help others that Denise gets away and survives the whole thing.
Can you get me to the infirmary? I saved your life.
And this also comes back to Carol and Sam. Look what happens when people in this timeline now care about themselves first. She has really hurt this kid and ruined his life too. So that thinking of just being aggressively about your own needs, it doesn't work anymore, it turns out. And that's another reason why the show is gonna take a big turn now. Quick fun little reference, when they're looking for a hollowed out Bible that could have stuff they need in it and they find that stuff, it might be a reference to the Shawshank Redemption. It's a little pickaxe inside of that movie that they find, Salvation Within. But the reason why I think this might be on purpose, that movie was directed by Frank Darabont, the first showrunner for The Walking Dead. Okay, moving on. And okay, it's finally night. Remember, very, very long days right now. And Rick is leading the line through Alexandria still, wielding his bloody axe, which I love seeing him carry because that's his go-to weapon in the comics, and he's such a badass with it, and I want to see them have him use that forever on the show, a lot more at least. But yeah, it's nighttime now, and that's leading to just this, basically the most gut-wrenching, I'm not intending that pun, by the way, just horrifying scene that I think this show has ever done. It starts with these terrifying shots from Sam's point of view, these close-ups on these walkers and their broken teeth, and they're chewing and spitting up blood. And again, remember, Sam has never seen anything like this in his life. And I'll only pick on Carol one more time, just right here. Again, she has traumatized him just like the Wolfman has traumatized Denise a bit, and when he tries to scare her, she kind of freezes up for a bit. The same thing is happening here, and I'm gonna remind you that Carol, not long ago, was pretending to be a wolf person. She even had the W on her head, and I feel like that was closer to what she's really like than she's been this whole season, pretending to be a wolfie then.
Come on. Leave him.
No.
But now, like I said earlier, we get the consequences of that way of thinking. So each of these shots is very surreal and nightmare-like, and that's something The Walking Dead actually never really does. They try to always give you a perspective from the point of reality, to the point where it's actually sometimes very slow or simple, and that makes it feel more real. This, it's shot like a horror movie. It actually reminded me of some of the really stylized shots in Michael Jackson's Thriller video, and that was based on really classic old Hollywood horror movies from like the 40s and 50s. So this scene has a lot of shots on it that you don't normally see, and I think it's trying to really heighten how much of a horror and nightmare it is inside of Sam's brain. Like, from his mind, he's living in a horror movie right now, and that's something that we've gotten so used to on The Walking Dead that they had to shoot it this new way to kind of show this is what it's like to someone who's never seen zombies before, or walkers in their world. Then we see that really disturbing shot of a walker child in pajamas walking away from them. Note how we don't even see the kid's face. It's so that Sam can see that and be like, oh, that's basically me. My nightmares have come true. I used to see walkers in my imagination. Now, not only am I here around them, I'm amongst them. I've become one of them. Of course, that freezes him. That breaks him beyond repair at that point. People try to whisper to him to save him, but it's obviously too late, and he freaks out and he dies one of the most gruesome deaths you can give a little kid, as he's screaming in agony and his mom and his brother are watching. And God, you can even hear a baby crying. And it's almost like that might not even be Judith. It almost feels like just a representation of that idea of a mom losing her infant, her baby, in Sam, and it's just heartbreaking. And then it gets worse. Jessie obviously just totally loses it, and she won't let go of Sam, and then the walkers take her too, which actually just hits Rick so hard. He's been building this relationship with her for like 2 seasons now, when he was gonna kill her husband because he was beating her, and then he does end up killing her husband. And a lot of people, myself kind of included, thought maybe Jesse will fill in for the role that Andrea plays in the comics, where this will be his love interest and the new relationship that we can root for and it'll last a long time. And no, that doesn't happen. In fact, even the actress was like, maybe they'll keep me alive. She sent an email to Scott Gimple, the Walking Dead showrunner, and she was basically like, how about we don't kill Jesse? She suggested that Jesse Jessie just runs off because she's in so much grief. And then maybe in like 2 seasons they find her and she's like just a crazy lady now. And he was like, no, yeah, we're gonna kill you. Just like in the comics. In fact, this all plays out very, very close to the exact frames from the comics, as you can see. And actually, until that moment where Rick chops off her hand, which is also, oh God, just so incredibly crazy. I want you to notice all before this, Rick was totally frozen, just seeing those flashes before he finally takes action to chop her hand off. But I'm gonna come back to that in a second about Rick right there in that moment freezing up and what it means for him later. And then as if we need it to get worse, it gets worse. Ron picks up Carl's gun and he points it at Rick in blind rage saying, "You." Clearly, he holds Rick responsible for killing now his entire family, and I bet Rick regrets teaching Ron how to shoot recently. But then boom, Michonne with the save before he can kill Rick, just impaling Ron with her sword. And I want to point out 2 things here about this whole Ron situation. One, it's kind of funny that very recently Carl was calling Ron's dad an asshole.
My dad killed your dad, but you need to know something. Your dad was an asshole.
And now Ron's like, okay, cool. Your dad killed my whole family, so I'm going to kill him. Kind of imbalanced response to him calling his dad an asshole. But 2, Ron gets that shot off and we see where it lands, right here. And if you think I never come back to stuff that I say I'm gonna come back to eventually, I'm gonna come back to something that I set up once before. In a previous episode breakdown, I pointed out how Ron kept closing his right eye as he was taking aim, even though that's not a good way to aim. And I feel like right there they were trying to hint at it a little bit, the foreshadowing. Ron basically looking at Carl, closing his right eye repeatedly, saying, yeah, I'm gonna take your right eye. But then, yeah, this is the craziest moment of maybe the whole show ever. Carl basically mirroring what poor little Sam was saying last episode. He's just as scared, just as confused about what's just happened. And oh my God, what a freaking gruesome wound. It's insane to think that they were able to pull this off. Greg Nicotero talked about how they were able to do this and stay really true to the image in the comics. In the comics, most of his head is freaking gone and there's no way he'd survive that. But in the episode, they got pretty close in a way that's still realistic. So let's actually dive into this moment a little bit more because it's the craziest thing the show has ever had. The few changes they ended up making to this moment were only because Greg Nicotero, one of the show's executive producers, believed that there's no way they could do exactly what they did in the comics without people thinking that he was definitely dead. So they created a very realistic version of the same thing. And they used this amazingly realistic mannequin that is meant to look like Chandler Riggs, the actor that plays Coral. And the wound on it is meant to look like it maybe bounced down, the bullet did, hits Coral's cheekbone, and then goes outward, and maybe those bone fragments kind of went into his eye. And then they digitally kind of cut that out from the mannequin and put it onto Chandler Riggs' actual face. It's exactly the same thing they did in Breaking Bad. Quick spoiler here for Breaking Bad, only lasts a second. That image of Gustavo Fring, the same special effects team did that and did this. And the moments where Rick is carrying Coral, that's all the mannequin. You can see how realistic it looks. It's pretty crazy. But the thing I also want to point out just about this moment here is this is one of the most iconic moments in the Walking Dead comics too, just this specific frame. And one, I'm really glad that the show, I think, totally pulled it off in a realistic, gruesome way. But 2, it's important to remember the reason you take out someone's eye and eyes, these things that control our perspective, they're purposely doing this, and they've even talked about this a little bit, about how moving forward, this character, Carl, will literally have a completely different perspective on the world, a different view on it, and that's just another way to signify what is happening in the show in this exact episode at this exact moment. Everything is going to be now seen in a new way. Rick is completely changing his worldview. Carl is going to completely change his worldview, literally and figuratively, and honestly, it doesn't exactly seem like they're going to change him into the same views. So we're setting up a lot of drama here, and just blowing out someone's eye is pretty freaking intense, so it's both literally really interesting and figuratively pretty interesting too. Moving on to another quick check-in with Eugene and Rosita, where Eugene is finally starting to sum up some courage here, and he says,
sooner or later, we're fighting our way out.
Obviously, that's another reference to the episode title of No Way Out. Our characters are backed into a corner like a cat. They have to fight their way out. It's the only way that they'll survive this. And it's actually in contrast to every time they've ever had a home before. They take off, they run, they let that old place blow up. The Honest trailer recently kind of nails that moment.
One story of the group finding a safe haven that eventually gets destroyed again. and again and again and again.
But this time, they can't run, so they gotta fight their way out. All right, we'll come back to this moment later though, but keep going. Jesse screaming and Ron shooting attracts a bunch of walkers away from Denise and the Wolfman, and I kind of talked about what was going on between them earlier, but now I'll just focus on the fact that the Wolfman does maybe change for a second. We see that he could keep going, but instead he goes back and saves Denise, and no, it does not work out for him, but you gotta ask, why is he doing that? Is it because he needs her as a doctor figure? He needs medical attention? Is it because he's changed and he's finally thinking about others and some stuff has sunken in finally, like what Morgan's been trying to teach him? Is it because he has a hots for Denise? We don't know why, and you can tell he actually doesn't even know why. Why don't you tell me why you think he did it in the comments? Aside from that, of course, note who takes him out. None other than Carol, someone who abides by his mentality, and again, it's not a road to survivability anymore. Definitely not for him, and again, that makes me wonder, is it gonna be a road for survival for Carol still? I don't know. I will say that that last moment of Wolfman, his dying breath, he pushes a walker out of Denise's way. That touches right there on that thing. Can people be redeemed? Can a bad person turn good? It's that whole concept of, oh, we should put him down. It's the only way to keep us safe. And yet, did he change right there? Again, it's a whole theme of The Walking Dead in general. Who do we need to become to survive? And can you be too far gone to save? Then I love this scene that we get from Denise where she turns into this like badass ER doctor as Rick is running up with Carl. And note when Aaron asks if Carl was bit, Denise doesn't even look. She's just like, nope. Why do you think she does that? My guess, and this is just a guess, is that Denise in this moment knows the power of positivity and hope right now. Spencer, Aaron, Heath, they're all just clearly freaked out, and someone needs to be inspiring hopefulness and courage instead of that despair and fear that Carol had done to Sam, that the Wolfman was trying to teach her. This is one of these turns of just jumping into positivity and hope, and I think this is a spark that is about to ignite a lot of positivity and hope in a lot of people in the rest of the episode, but we'll get to that. First up, Rick. Talk about a spark setting you off. Remember how I was saying earlier that Rick was frozen in those moments where he just literally just didn't know what to do when everyone was dying and everything was falling apart around him? All of that energy, that fear, that anger, that rage, it all finally hits him almost like a delayed reaction, and Rick goes out to do what apparently he does best, and that's kill some freaking walkers. In this moment, we're seeing Rick unleashed. He's like a freaking superhero. For so long, he's had to worry about, is everybody else safe? But in this moment, Carl, he can't do anything for. There's no one else that he actually really cares that much about. So he just goes out there all alone to let all of that rage out. And if you notice, the editing is really clear about what's going on here. We start with that one long take to give us the scope of the danger, but then it's followed by all of these really quick cuts to highlight Rick is the savage one. He's on the offensive now. You almost feel bad for the walkers when you sick Rick on them. He's now finally taking charge in a freaking gruesome way. And that image of him all alone out there fighting against definitely overwhelming odds. If Denise's positivity a second ago was the spark that would inspire people, this is the equivalent of the bazooka into a lake of gasoline where everyone gets totally inspired by this. Michonne's out there first, then Heath and Aaron and Spencer, and then random Alexandrians. And they're secondary characters. They could die at any moment. They don't know that, of course, but everyone goes out there to try to save the day.
We can beat them! We can beat them!
And then we even see Gabriel in the church have his first actual badass moment.
We've been praying that God will save our town. Our prayers have been answered. God will save Alexandria because God has given us the courage to save it ourselves.
Gabriel's basically saying that faith alone, that's not gonna save them. They have to fight to save themselves, fight their way out. And another way to put it would be, faith without works is dead. Remember some of those first words he said to Rick when they saved him at the very beginning of the Gabriel story?
I called for help. Help came.
He just sat there waiting, cowardly honestly, and putting too much faith in God to save him. And now, instead of what he did before, which was hide inside of a church while his parishioners were dying outside, now he's the one that leaves the church, taking matters into his own hands, getting a little blood on his collar, finally, and joining the fight. And he's followed by everybody else. Rosita, Carol, and Morgan put aside their differences. Eugene, who's another coward, honestly, grows a pair, and he gives us what I think is the night's best line.
No one gets to clock out today, and hell, This is a story people are gonna tell.
The reason I really like that line is that it's just so damn confident, and it's really forward thinking of Eugene. It's implying that not only are they gonna win the night, but that Alexandria is gonna grow. It's gonna become a larger society, and then eventually civilization is gonna happen again. And that maybe in future generations, in history classes, they're gonna talk about this night, and Eugene himself might be in those history books. And that is just such a cool thought and moment to have for yourself. I'm sure it's exactly how George Washington felt when he beat the zombies back to gain our independence. Moving on. Morgan then finds the Wolfman, now turned as a walker, and he tells him he's sorry before putting him down.
I'm sorry.
Clearly, he regrets that he wasn't able to rehabilitate him, though he doesn't know that maybe he did when he tried to help save Denise, but it's also a reference to very recently when they had a very similar moment.
I'm sorry.
That's when he first knocked him out earlier this season. Then Glenn and Enid rush to help save Maggie, and oh my God, I'm sure you guys were also like, are they about to actually kill Glenn? Is Glenn finally gonna die? Like, that moment was terrifying where Glenn is just backed up against the wall there. And honestly, they could have gotten away with killing him there because maybe the whole reason that he was resurrected was so he could come back here and save his wife and future child, and it would kind of resemble Christ being resurrected only to go into heaven again. And they didn't do it, and it was a very cool way they saved him. I love this moment.
Appreciate it, pal.
And oh my God, that was like such a relief moment. And Abraham's line made me smile so stupidly. I like just really loved that moment. But enough with destroying Glenn or making us think Glenn is gonna die. We're just too sensitive right now, and we just need some time. There's a lot of chaos that's gonna come in the future, so I know it's gonna get bad again, but just for a little while, can it just be like somebody else's turn at bat?
Appreciate it, pal.
Daryl then plots to corral all of the walkers into one place, and he dumps the fuel from the truck into the pond and torches it with his obviously new favorite weapon, which is kind of an upgrade from a crossbow, his freaking rocket launcher now, which again used to be Abraham's rocket launcher, so we'll see how that goes. But I want to point out, he just learned this trick from Sherry when she described in a previous episode that they got a bunch of walkers to go in one place when they set that terrible forest fire.
It's just the fire, just burning them all away. And the other ones in town, they were drawn to it. They just walked right into the flames.
This is a newly acquired trick, and Daryl is thinking very quickly. But also, note how the walkers are drawn to the flames like they're descending back into hell as demons who have just been defeated would. It's not only just another biblical reference, it's also really freaking cool looking. And that's because that fire was not CGI. That was a real fire. And those people walkers that were descending into it, those were real people just wearing all kinds of flame retardant clothing. I think it was honestly totally worth it, even though there were real people's houses nearby that could have been burned down. Sorry, it was worth this moment. Just looking very cool, very memorable, and also way better than the CGI balloons we saw kind of recently. So A+ for the practical fire. But a triple plus for this montage here where Rick and the rest of the gang finish off all of these walkers, and I think it was something like over 177 walkers go down. I think Rick is responsible for killing like 40 or more on his own. Eventually, we don't even see the walkers in this montage. We just see the people swinging in the night right at the camera. It's the show making a really bold statement. We're at a turning point in this series. It's not about the walkers anymore and smashing their heads and their brains going everywhere. It's a show about these people trying to team up, work together to build a society now in the apocalypse. Can they make a new world? It's only these faces that matter now. And it's one way to rejuvenate a show that is in its 6th season. And it's kind of why I get that some people say this show might go on forever. It's totally reinventing itself from this point forward. Again, if you read the comics, you know what I mean. But if you haven't, trust me, everything changes from here on out. Then the next morning, I think it's shot a lot like how they shoot a battlefield in a war movie. After the war battle is done, the smoke is rising, there's corpses everywhere you look, and the Alexandrians somehow have pulled through, united as one, covered in the blood of their enemy. And from the look of it, they kind of seem like they didn't even really lose anybody, except for one entire family. But aside from that entire family, they look like war soldiers now. They're clinging to their weapons still, and they're just staring, kind of messed up in the head probably and shell-shocked, but banded together for sure. And so this final scene really just puts it all very clearly, where Rick is tearfully describing to basically comatose Carl what his new vision is for this world. Season 6 has been all about Rick learning to trust Alexandrians and learning to dream for a brighter future. On her deathbed, Deanna told Rick,
"They're all your people, Rick."
And finally, after seeing everybody come together to accomplish the impossible and facing the reality of potentially losing Carl, Rick has finally understood the concept of building a new world is not only possible, but it's necessary.
It's all possible. I see that now.
And he wants Carl to be able to see it. Kind of see it. Sorry. By the way, this is all playing out exactly how it did in the comics. The staging is basically the same. The lines are the same.
I want to show you the new world, Carl. I want to make it a reality for you.
And I think that's all because this is just such an important moment that they wanted to do it, just like they did in the comics, where it was another important moment, the moment Rick realizes he's wrong. But also the showrunners have promised that moving forward, they're actually gonna do a lot more stuff like how they did in the comics. Of course, they can't do everything the same because Daryl's not even in the comics, different people are dead, but they're gonna stay true to all the stuff that's great. And this is one of the really important moments of the comics. I'd expect a lot more side by side, exactly the same as comic moments. Now could be a good time to catch up on the comics if you're thinking about it. And if you're wondering where in the comics we are, it's the section of the comics called No Way Out, the episode's title. Anyway, let's just kind of like circle all this back up now and put a bow on it for you. Rick's been on the run for years, right? He's always been cutting his losses when his temporary home gets overrun. The farm, the prison, Woodbury, Terminus, he always finds a way out. And each time he ran, he pushed himself further and further away from the life he knew before waking up in that hospital bed. He's been losing his humanity slowly over time, and Alexandria really cornered him. It gave him no way out, meaning he could either die or fight through it and create a new way out. The new way out is to evolve from survivors constantly on the run to a united society that can defend itself from external threats. And that gives us that other meaning of that sign in the opening images. Come on in, we're open. Rick is saying Alexandria now, from this moment forward, is open for business. And that's gonna go great until Negan shows up. Okay, I'm gonna fly through my lingering questions. Just one, how do you think Negan's gonna retaliate for Daryl killing 8 of his men? We know that Jeffrey Dean Morgan is signed on to play Negan and he's gonna be making his appearance sometime this season. We just don't know how he's gonna enter, and if it's anything like the comics, it's gonna get just really ugly for a lot of people, and I'm really nervous for everybody. I don't know that they're gonna kill the same people they kill in the comics. I think everybody is up for grabs. But what do you think? 2, what does it mean now that everyone's finally back together? We haven't been all together in this season for a long time. What's gonna change? I know for one, Abraham is now into Sasha, not Rosita. That feels like some drama's about to happen. What else is gonna change now that everybody got back together? We had that moment where Daryl and Glenn looked at each other and they were kind of like, oh, you haven't been here either? Nah, man, have you been here? Nah. So I feel like a lot of stuff is about to like settle, and we're gonna get very new relationships going on. A lot of stuff is gonna feel different for the people and their interpersonal relationships. Can you think of any others than the Rosita and Abraham and Sasha one? I bet there's more. And 3, is Carol gonna die? What do you think? I'm very nervous for her. I'm not gonna say that I've heard that she's gonna die, but it just doesn't feel like it can be Glenn right now. It doesn't feel like certain other characters would do it. There are some that I don't want to talk about because I don't want to start a rumor that that person's gonna die. But Carol is the one that I just can't. Do you think Carol is gonna survive this season? Obviously, I love this episode so much, but let me know what you thought about it in the comments, or if I missed anything, which easily could have happened because I was just blown away the whole time. Even though I kind of knew what was gonna happen, it still was maybe my favorite episode ever of this show. Maybe, I don't know if it was yours, let me know. Also, if you like these Walking Dead analysis and breakdown videos, they're a lot of work to do. I really like doing them though, but please make sure to share them and let other people know about them. As long as people are watching them, and hopefully a lot more people keep watching them, I want to keep making them. Also, if you're new around here, subscribe. We do all kinds of cool stuff on this channel. And follow on Twitter at New Rockstars if you want to know when new videos are coming out and what new videos are coming out. Follow me at Fimo on Twitter if you want to ask me questions about stuff or just chat. Thanks for watching all of this. It's been a lot of fun talking to you. One day, hopefully you can join me and we can talk back to me and it won't be such a one-sided conversation. But until then, bye.